we're going to set up follow-up calls with every governor we met with to make sure we're available. As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Friday program. Fellas, did we have a nice Thanksgiving?
Excellent. Could not ask for better.
Yeah, it was great.
Did you have to deliver any messages, anybody?
Well, I just had to control my domain, the kitchen. And as the founder of the feast,
you were kicking people out. You had a tweet about there was people serving breakfast, and you're like, all right, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, it's turkey time.
Yeah.
It's turkey time. Turkey time's serious time.
It is a time.
Because it's about, if you make Thanksgiving.
You make the turkey.
You make the turkey. I make the turkey. I'm very proud of the turkey that I make. But it's like you get a bachelor's degree in supply chain management when you cook Thanksgiving, because there's a lot that goes into it.
A lot going on.
And there's time and things need to be thought.
Yeah, the timing of all of it's insane.
It is. It's a lot of work, but I take it as a point of pride. I love doing it.
Well, my pops Jimbo made a hell of a turkey this year.
Yeah.
Nice.
Really crushed it.
Did he brine it? What did he do? Smoke
we
it?
did a couple-day brine on that sucker.
Nice.
But he also did like a full consumer report research for like weeks heading into it.
Okay.
As to where's the best turkey that I can buy.
I respect that.
Yeah, so he got it all done, and my mom makes great sides. Kids were playing in the pool. It was terrific.
We did one of those farm-raised turkeys, did the brine, and then I also had the injector.
Oh,
Yeah.
You got to have the injector.
Oh, the injector's key.
Throwing some butter in there, you're getting it under the skin,
I put the
you're
butter
getting it
under the
in the
skin.
meat,
Yep.
doing the whole shebang. And I also I don't do stuffing in the turkey, but I'll put the celery in.
Oh yeah, you got the
carrot
fruits and stuff in there.
and the
yeah. That's
onion.
nice.
Yeah,
Shebang, as he said.
the whole thing.
Yeah, shebang. How about you, Smash?
Well, we mixed it up a little bit this year, and I smoked some baby back ribs just to
Nice.
inject those into the conversation. And then my daughters made sides, mashed potatoes.
Wait, you had
which
no
were-
turkey?
We did have turkey. Yeah, we had turkey, but we just threw ribs were my contribution.
Ribs are always good.
Yeah,
They
you
were-
can
At
never
any
go
situation, you can bring ribs.
Can
They
never
were
go
good.
wrong with that.
They were good. And then my daughter made mashed potatoes that were just like tons of cream cheese and butter.
Oh,
You could have built a house with those.
Yeah.
well, I feel like the Thanksgiving episode was a hit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's become one of the best traditions that we have going on.
It
on the
really
show.
is.
And without fail, every year, like ahead of it, you see like headlines from like the Washington Post and stuff like. They don't realize we're now making fun of them for this, but they'll be like, "Here's how to deal with your uncle who doesn't agree with no cash bail."
Right. Yeah.
It's like, what? Yeah. Like,
Well,
I thought, like, that's the thing is, like, this is supposed to be a time when families spend time together. You have a meal, you enjoy each other's company, you talk about what you're grateful for, life is great. And, like, they can't take a second off from the bullshit. And so, like, that thing is that, like, now we have no option but to fight fire with fire.
It's true. It's like, if you read anything in the mainstream media, it's all about de-escalating the conflict.
Sure.
And like we provide the alternative to that.
Yes.
What I found most helpful in my home was immediately that morning I put on the Creed halftime show.
Oh, yeah, no, that was
after
nice.
September 11th.
Yeah.
And that kind of set the tone, especially for my wife's brother and his girlfriend, who are on the younger side,
Yes.
who probably don't really remember 9/11. I was like, this is when our country was great. And that sort of, I think, ultimately really diffused any tension for the rest of the day.
People are like, "You're right."
If you're listening to Creed before we even get on the Macy's
When he
Thanksgiving.
rolls in on the
Yeah.
ribbon thing. Oh,
the
man.
ribbons, the ribbon dancers.
Oh, it's just so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
The one thing I regret that we didn't talk about in our show is an idea that I hope people will use for Christmas, if they didn't use it for Thanksgiving, when Grandpa or your uncle starts talking about Vietnam or the way things used to be and the way they ought to be, you need to give them a platform. You need to take the fork and you need to bang on the water glass and say, Grandpa has something to say. Everybody listen now.
Yeah.
I think that's right. In this particular episode, Grandpa had other responsibilities.
Right.
That he was supposed to. If you don't know, you should go back and listen. Off the top of the show, that was our Secretary of Education. Dude, everyone's become so dumb.
I mean, that's just right there, the statement.
So, I mean, what he said is, I think President Reagan said, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. I think the actual quote was like, here are the
Yeah, the scariest words you can hear.
Yeah.
words you can hear. It's like the exact
opposite.
And like one of these assholes was like, oh, no, this is a good quote. Let's throw it in the Secretary of Education speech.
And I think, if anything, that just like solidifies what Reagan said, where you have a government official who doesn't realize he's making himself sound like an absolute idiot. But I mean, it's the point itself of like, here's a government official who ostensibly should be in charge of education and make sure kids in this country get educated. He didn't even learn it.
Didn't even know it.
He didn't know it, and he makes himself look like an idiot. And Reagan was right.
What is it with, I mean, just the basic history? We're so lost. The one thing that blew my effing mind this week, I think it came out yesterday or Saturday, it was all over Twitter, the Zapruder film.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I was blown away by the number of people on Twitter who was like, oh my God, I've never seen it. Where did this film, and reminder, just for those of you who are listening, if you don't know what that is, that's the actual film that was filmed of the Kennedy assassination, which has been internationally renowned as one of the most significant amateur filmmaking events of our lifetime, of anybody's lifetime.
Right.
And you should be like, who's on the penny in America? And yet I was blown away how many people online were like, oh my gosh, this is really graphic. I didn't know this existed.
They're like, well, it wasn't on TikTok.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Our society is raising a generation of idiots.
oh,
I mean, it's stunning, dude. It's really, really disappointing. But like the fact that that this is not just a government official, but the guy who's ostensibly in charge of education in our country
Exactly.
has no understanding
Wait,
of history or his place in it.
That's the thing, is it's really two things. Like, number one, we have no collective history anymore, to the idea of like people not knowing what the Zapruder film is.
yeah.
We don't have that anymore because all of our media is so disparate, and there's a lot of advantages to that, but obviously some cultural disadvantages to not having like a clear history we all understand. And the people who are supposed to know the history don't even fucking know it.
They don't exactly.
Or the actual destruction of history, where
Yeah.
I think it was this past week where I think it was New York City started removing a statue of Thomas Jefferson.
Cool.
Like, this is the point that it's gotten to.
yeah.
But can you imagine, like, I just think about this in terms of, because I think these accounts that I was seeing over-indexed on people who were like, RFK is awesome. Right? And I'm looking at this and I'm like, can you imagine having a definitive theory on the CIA murdering JFK and yet not knowing that the Zapruder film existed?
Yeah.
Well, their minds were free from the propaganda.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, so fellas, before we get into it, a big week on the merch store. People have been very excited about the offerings and the Black Friday offerings. I can't tell you enough how great these things are, and I've seen a few more in the wild. Got to get involved.
You do, especially because, as we know, the left has a war on Christmas.
Yeah.
And in order to fight the war on Christmas, you have to buy Ruthless Podcast merch and give it to all your relatives.
And you can get that right on the domain?
You can. You just go to ruthlesspodcast.com and you just click on store in the navigation. Or you could go, and I would prefer you did this because my friends like to goof on me and make fun of me for setting it up. But you can go to the subdomain. The subdomain is store.ruthlesspodcast.com.
Well, that's good.
I should take a rip off that.
And
When people buy merch through the subdomain, I should make more money.
You're a cynical man.
Spoken like a younger
I was
brother.
gonna say, this is a good time for me to bring up that shout out to the gentleman who was wearing a senator hoodie at the airport.
Oh, yeah.
I left it alone. It seemed like he was having a slice of pizza. So I'm not gonna go up and be like, "Hey, great hoodie," but it was a great hoodie, dude. You looked awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Those are such huge hits. Anyway, thanks for supporting the program with that and delivering a message at the same time. Let's get into some news. Lot of discussion, which I find completely hilarious, about Democrats trying to grapple with their own unpopularity. And some of it is Biden, some of it is the policies. But the idea that like inflation and our general economic outlook could have a political impact is just now sort of starting to take hold within the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
If you notice this. There's a story from CNBC, 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck going into the holidays. 60. As of October, 60% of adults said they're living paycheck to paycheck, according to Lending Club report. This figure is unchanged from last year. And remember, last year was like the most dire economic circumstance. Everybody was just terrified. And Democrats were like, "Oh, don't worry, we've gotten completely out of that. We're now back in the black here."
Things are not improving.
And it's the same, if not worse. Even as credit card debt tops $1 trillion, almost all, or 96% of shoppers said they expect to overspend this season, according to a separate TD Bank survey. Half of all consumers plan to take on more debt for holiday expenses. Another report by Ally Bank found. This is,
That's the thing is, I've been harping on this for a while, but you're really starting to see it manifest where folks are struggling to keep up with the rising cost of everything. Like the price of groceries have gone up significantly. Going out to eat at a restaurant, the cost has gone up significantly. And this is a time where especially parents feel obligated to try to make, the holiday special for their kid. And so they want to make sure, they get their son or daughter what they wanted. And the only way that they can make ends meet when they're already living paycheck to paycheck is they turn to the credit card. We've already hit a record amount of credit card debt, more than any time in human history. Credit card debt in terms of how much Americans are holding, over $1 trillion.
It's sad. It's really sad.
And the important thing again to say about that is this credit card debt is in an extremely high interest rate environment.
Right.
So that's like 30% on a credit card. So
it's wild.
I read this headline like a plea to ignorant libs who are in charge of everything, because if you are living paycheck to paycheck, you don't need to read about it in CNBC. You know the reality of your situation.
Yeah, you're right. This is not something that you need to read about. You're living it.
Right, exactly. And they just refuse to acknowledge it. And I don't understand why. I really don't understand why. I think they just don't care. They're living their own lives. They're doing their own things. They're pushing ideology on everybody. And 60% of the people are poor because of it.
Yeah, no, it's true. You were all over this over the weekend, too. I noticed there's a Washington Post story smash that you tweeted about and may have brought change.
Yeah, from time to time they change headlines. And I don't know if we have the graphic up here of what their original headline was. Yeah, there it is right there. They said inflation is down, which first of all, it's not. The rate of inflation was unchanged. The rate of inflation was unchanged in the previous month. That's not even something that they got into in this headline. But gripes still going viral. So people who are concerned about prices going up,
It's the gripes.
they're the ones who are wrong.
stop complaining.
It's the gripes. And I saw a bunch of libs on Twitter also. There was a New York Times story that did kind of a focus group of Democratic voters who were concerned about this. And they're like, why don't they understand that the economy is great?
Yeah.
Why don't they understand?
They're talking to normal people and they're mad at them.
What's with the gripes?
And that's the thing is this is why you saw Bidenomics get completely disappeared. Like they don't talk about that.
Did we call that
at
or
all.
did we call that?
Totally. And like I described it at the time, when they roll out Bidenomics, it's like a ISIS, murder tape of where they're like, we're taking responsibility for destroying this economy. And when they
ISIS
realize,
murder tape.
it becomes a joke because everyone on the right starts saying Bidenomics. Whenever there's an article of like inflation, has people griping, why are they complaining about this? Bidenomics. Whenever you see like that article in particular that the Washington Post did, it was insidious.
So they changed the headline, right, Smash?
They did change the headline, and I don't know if we could put that graphic back up. And now it says the viral $16 McDonald's meal that may explain voter anger at Biden.
Oh.
So it's a viral thing that explains
It's McDonald's. It's not the economy.
You'd have to be like a criminal to try to dupe Americans like this if you're supposed to be a journalist. Who was responsible for this?
They always put a distance in the causality of things. If you notice that, that's the thing that they do to editorialize.
Totally.
Instead of just being like Biden's failures to rein in inflation has
you go.
voters upset. It's now become this third-party thing
Yeah.
that is happening
It's
out there.
happening.
And somebody's responsible for it, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the thing.
This is their move to protect members of their own party.
Yeah.
They would never do this if there were a Republican in charge. That's why we always say that if you want media to hold a government accountable, you want Republicans in charge.
And so, in particular about this article, it was talking about how there's these videos now that were going viral on TikTok where a person would order just like one combo meal and they show the receipt and it's for $16.
Yeah.
$16 for a combo meal at McDonald's.
And this used to be like dollar menu stuff.
That's the thing. And so, like, the article, it was written by Taylor Lawrence. Who could have thought?
Oh.
Who could have thought?
Oh,
Shocker.
no way, really?
Yeah. And so, in
noted,
the article,
noted economist.
they were like, why are people griping about this? Don't they know it's only like, I think the burger they said was like $7, but they used the burger. They didn't say the combo.
Right.
You know, they're trying to do anything they can to lie to individuals. Yeah, so I found a separate graphic. Can we get that up there?
Oh.
This is from 2018, folks. This was the dollar menu at McDonald's. For
2018?
From 2018.
Oh my gosh.
It used to be this good before Biden. You've got a cheeseburger for $1.
You can do a Happy Meal for $3?
Yeah. $3 for a Happy Meal.
Oh.
$3. I mean, it was that good so recently.
I was all about those single cheeseburgers, and the reason why is pretty simple. Those little onions they have, the little square onions they throw in there, like confetti.
Yeah.
Just like the little flavor crystals. They're just delightful. Absolutely the best, and you can get it for $1.
It used to. You used to be able to, like,
Sad.
we had it this good.
Listen-
Cheeseburgers for $1. $3 Happy Meals. And now look at how, like, a $16 meal at McDonald's.
And
A
the-
$16 meal at McDonald's.
In the Washington Post, on the front page,
Put this on.
put an article that said you're wrong for complaining about
Yeah.
it.
Stop complaining about it, folks.
So, but this is the paragraph that really got me, that I think the editors probably reached into to deliver that first headline. They're talking about the $16 McDonald's thing. These stories soon reached the White House Office of Digital Strategy.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of bangers in there, right? I mean, think about what these clowns are looking at on a day-to-day basis, which tracked the meme as one of the many exaggerated examples of the nation's economic woes, according to a White House official speaking on the condition of anonymity.
I just see I see the meme of a bunch of people patting each other on the back.
Look what we've done.
Yeah.
Look what we've done.
We tracked the meme, guys.
In reality, inflation has been steadily subsiding. And last week, the government reported price hikes has eased yet again in October.
And I think so. This is an important game that they're playing.
It's not, first of all, it's not true. It's factually inaccurate.
What they're trying to say is, so they're playing the game of, they say, well, inflation has been solved. They're talking about month-to-month increase,
Of the rate.
but the prices have stayed the same and elevated.
Right.
Because we don't have deflation. Has anyone begun paying less for anything?
Right.
Have prices come down on anything? Also, folks, if you saw any of these Black Friday or Cyber Monday or any of these, there were no deals.
No.
There was nothing. Because, you know, the producer's price index, the PPI, is also elevated. Everyone is paying more for things, and all the White House is focused on is how can we continue to lie folks?
It's so funny you mentioned that, Smug, because it was like my wife did a little bit of the, not Black Friday, but sort of over the weekend with the price reductions on stuff. But it was funny because it was like, this is 40% off, but it's really just the price you could have paid for something 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
Think of the savings.
Man, that is heartbreaking.
It's literally just cutting off Bidenflation.
That is heartbreaking.
Overcoming this discontent. I'm going to continue reading because this is just like, if it should be written as a complete parody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a news article.
Like George Orwell,
Yeah.
if he was making a joke.
Overcoming this discontent, and understanding what's driving it. Think about that for a second. And understanding what's driving it has become a central priority of the White House and Democratic lawmakers.
Wait a minute. What's driving the discontent?
Yeah,
Not
what-
what's driving the
Bingo.
prices.
Right.
Bingo.
Right.
Yep.
Get out of town.
Yeah, leading to a fierce debate among economists, pollsters, and other experts. As the administration tries to figure out how to improve its economic message, White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients has held internal meetings over the last several weeks with top communications and economic officials, according to two people familiar with internal matters, speaking on the condition of anonymity, of course.
How do we manipulate people into stop complaining about $16 meals at McDonald's?
That's the thing. So this is an
Get
issue
outta
where,
here.
I mean, we just touched on 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. A meal at McDonald's costs $16. The concern of the White House and all these advisors is, how do we get people to stop complaining? It's not, how do we fix the problem?
Well, and I also read.
I mean, that's mind-blowing.
What I read into this is like an additional subtext, and we've seen this since 2020, is that every piece of information that is true that Democrats don't like is categorized as like a misinformation campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know, and so in order to remedy it, it's not like we can't acknowledge the reality of things being true. We're actually like the entire story is about the campaign to fight back on something we all agree is just misinformation.
Oh,
right?
Of course,
Right.
right?
Right.
So listen to that. Americans won't give Biden credit for these accomplishments if the president and his allies don't talk about them, many strategists and party officials say.
Can they name any accomplishment?
I think they're giving him due credit, and that's why his approval is 35%.
Bingo.
It's sort of the problem when your first thing you pass is something called the Inflation Reduction Act, and then you don't reduce inflation. It seems like basic shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's it right there, dude.
At the center of this debate is a dispute over what extent social media and perceptions, rather than real conditions in the economy, are fueling voter angst.
Oh,
So here's...
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
I think this is...
Because it's your Facebook page rather than your actual
Right.
pocketbook that's
This is
making you
important
make
context.
a fucking decisions. Are you kidding me?
That's the thing. So this is very important context. When this line right here says that rather than real conditions in the economy,
Real conditions.
the author of this, Taylor Lorenz, attended a $50,000 a year Swiss boarding school. And she knows what things are like out there for you.
How is this a news story?
That's
It was on the front
propaganda.
page. It was on the front page.
I mean, oh, God. White House officials said the administration is working with TikTok creators
There you go. That's the answer. A platform that we know is controlled by China. Let's
to
just work
tell
with them.
positive stories about Biden's economic stewardship while also working with social media platforms to counter
Oh, it's
misinformation.
misinformation.
Let me tell-
always. I knew it. I knew it.
There it was. So here's the thing. We can work with TikTok because America's, they'll help. They'll help. These other ones, we got to stop them from helping.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great point by Duncan. I think if it helps Democrats, it's called information. If it hurts them, it's called misinformation. That's
Right.
just like the blanket rule that they use. Unbelievable.
I mean, I don't know if we have this graphic. Did we put this graphic together, this graphic number 3? If we don't have it, it's not a big deal. But it's just so showing about, we've got it.
That's great.
So, more Americans saw their disposable income decline in 2022 than in any of the preceding 7 years. And look at the numbers.
This is horrific. This essentially, if you want to distill in a graphic, and this is why you should subscribe on YouTube so you see this. If you want to show a country that is in a dire situation, this is what you would show.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that graphic, dude.
And it's right in 2020. I wonder what happened.
It's just completely shocking. You look at it, and it's like, then you get quotes from those people saying it's the reality that they need to focus on, not this propaganda.
This is a problem within newsrooms. We've talked about this extensively, that newsrooms are over-indexed on far left-wing Democrats. There are still, and Smug is going to give me a hard time for this, there are still people inside of newsrooms who are like, fine, you could put that up. You guys, you win the argument. You're putting it on the front page. Just put this graphic in. Just put this graphic in, just to show where the incomes are, and I'll call it even. And there are still people at newspapers who are interested in delivering facts, no matter who they upset when they're printed. And I think the fact that this graphic made it into this story is evidence of that.
I think so too. All right, so to break things up a little bit, fellas, and this was not part of the plan coming into the show, but I think it's really important that we bring our chief diversity officer in at this point, Nikki Spaghetti. There's a number of things that we need to talk to him about.
Okay.
I want to start with his Thanksgiving and then he's also part Irishman.
Yeah.
He's like half Italian, half Irishman.
Yeah.
Turns out the Irish are making some news these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were trending on Twitter, and it was fantastic content.
So, Nikki, this is going to be your first time speaking on the program. How are you, pal?
I'm good.
Nikki, before we get into the Irish, let's branch out into the Italian side. Why don't you give us just a little flavor for Thanksgiving? What are the dishes?
So we'd like to start off with some nice veal parmesan.
You do a veal parmesan to start off with? That's like the first course?
My bad. We start off with a pasta course, and as I sent the picture I sent
In
it was
Slack,
a
yeah.
nice, it was a nice shrimp scampi that I made myself.
You just whip up a little scampi, a little pasta fajoule.
Just a little bit. We have a lot of other dishes to make.
Did
on
you
Thanksgiving.
do you have a charcuterie, maybe a gabagool?
There was gabagool.
There was
So it's official.
prosciutto, gabagool.
Amazing.
I love how he says prosciutto, not prosciutto.
I know.
Legit.
So good. That's how you know he's real Italian. So wait, so do you get to turkey or do you not do that at all?
That's like 10 courses down.
Oh, so
wow.
you just, I mean, when does the meal like this start in your household?
The meal like this starts at we want to make it like at a good time, so around 2 p.m. And we just start. That's when we just sit down for a nice family dinner. Yeah. Just like everyone else.
You guys just have a conversation about the waste management business, and then
Absolutely.
You just, yeah.
I'll tell you guys a story about that
Yeah.
later. But
Oh.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you're gonna save it? It's the pro. It's
Oh yeah, I'm saving it. Yeah.
I can't wait to see where that goes. So, like 7 hours later, you get to the turkey.
Absolutely. Yeah. 7 hours later. And we, for like dessert, we have some nice pumpkin cannolis.
Wow.
Are you
I
being for
bet-
real?
Pumpkin cannolis.
I bet those are good,
They're
honestly.
great.
Honestly,
I mean, that sounds, but that's wild. Like, if I had to come up with a joke, I'd come up with
Pumpkin cannoli.
cannolis.
Hell yes, Nikki. All right, so listen, some of us were a little perplexed over the weekend as we were looking at what was happening with the Irish trending, and it appears as if, I don't know, for the untrained eye, that the Irishmen may be reconstituting the IRA because, look, nobody knows terrorism like the Irish.
And so what ends up happening is this morning I wake up on Twitter, the Irish are trending. And I was like, what is this? Something about Notre Dame? What's going on?
Right.
And it was just like good old fashioned Irish bigotry. Where it was like, you know those ads you'd see in like, or not ads, for like newspaper
Cartoons, yeah,
cartoons
yeah.
you'd see in history class of where it was like, oh, the Irish, they're depicted as like drunks and like, super into leprechauns and such. And it was just like you do a search for the Irish on Twitter, and it's just like banger after banger going after and holding the Irish accountable. Like throughout history.
Holding them accountable.
Nikki's going to car bomb you. So wait, Nikki, so tell me, how did this come about?
So to give a little background, Ireland has been, just like many other countries, been going through some tough times.
The troubles.
Yeah, the troubles. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Is
yeah.
it like another famine? It's not serious, right? Or is
Nah,
it like,
immigration this time.
Okay.
But
It's not the famine. Jesus.
I was like potatoes again,
do we have
but
any,
that's bad. It was a horrible thing.
do we have any proper introductory music or anything for Nikki on this stuff?
The Irish,
Not if we want to get banned from YouTube.
Oh, we don't. Okay, I guess
the Irish are also litigious. My God.
because we've also got the board back, by the way,
We do.
which is a hell of a time to give us the board, but we've got it now. So Nikki, all right. So immigration has become an issue.
yeah, immigration's become an issue, and this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. There was an incident where a Algerian immigrant went on a mass stabbing spree.
Good
and,
God. That's
yeah,
terrible.
Left a 5-year-old girl in critical condition in the hospital,
Hey.
and this is what triggered the riots.
So all right. So
Oh, so there were riots,
Yeah,
yeah, because
and they were like anti the policy that allowed this to happen, right? Not
Yeah.
like-
Basically, yeah.
yeah,
because it's a horrific time we live in. Like, you can have a terrorist attack, then people in the streets in America will go and be like, I support Hamas.
Yeah, but see, that's what's different about the Irish is that your majority population there is they're ready to throw down.
I'd
in
hope
one
so.
minute.
I'd hope, and they're at the mercy of who, to allow these I guess undocumented or whatever immigrants into Ireland. Is this the British who are at it? Is it their fault?
It's their own government.
Yeah, it's the prime minister who is not good.
Not a good one.
Not a
The
good
Prime Minister of Ireland.
Yeah.
But surely the Prime Minister of Ireland knows the rich history of the Irish people when it comes to combating their.
Well, if he doesn't know, he's going to find out.
I mean, here's the thing: is you straighten him out, you just get his Lucky Charms. What's he gonna do? Yeah. I think that's like the
What
known
I'm
secret.
what I'm told, Smug, is that you actually just have to sit and watch to see where the end of the rainbow
That's it.
is.
And
That's
then
right.
the Prime Minister of Ireland is there
Well, you got to get the pot.
doing terrible policy.
Get the pot of gold. So all right. So the Irish rose up.
Yes, they did. They got a little uppity.
They got a little uppity. And the end
for
result
them.
of that. Do we have a clip showing anything from the government so we can properly and contextualize this? This is like the policy of the Irish government.
Oh, do we have?
No.
Yeah.
All legislation is about the restriction of freedom. That's exactly what we're doing here, is we are restricting freedom, but we're doing it for the common good.
All right, so this is a I don't know who this lady is, but this lady is explaining why it is that the government needs to censor and ban any sort of dissent,
Oh, yeah, you gotta love it.
which is always a good first sign of any government when they're seeking to.
You know you have a good policy when you have to force people to not be allowed to talk about it.
Very important that you have the full strength of the government enforcing
things are going great if that's the situation.
your ability. But the Irish, for those of you who have not followed, have a way of dealing with this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's whiskey, potatoes, and car bombs.
Violence.
Is basically that's the cornerstone of their entire economy.
Well, they really pioneered terrorism in a lot of ways. So, Nikki, what's the end of this deal?
What's the end of this deal?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
I mean, does it seem like this is an ongoing thing? I mean,
It's from what I've seen, it's died down a little bit, but it if we know the Irish, it's by no means the end of it.
they don't.
That's a great reputation. to
The
have.
best part about the Irish, from my experience, is that like it generally a pretty congenial people, and that you get along. I don't know very many Irishmen that I haven't gotten along with almost immediately, but there's a ledge there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that, like history shows, they are typically dangerous people.
Well,
There's
if you
a lot
push
of bad
them,
things there.
if you push them,
I mean, like I said, if you search for the Irish, there's a lot of information out there that's worth looking
Just
into.
look at
Historical documents.
the
and such.
Irish.
Yeah. From the Archbishop Anselm. Like, I was reading a lot of this stuff. It was really great
You had to
information.
get educated.
This is from the Archbishop of Anselm, who said that this is a filthy people, wallowing in vice. They indulge in incest, for example, in marrying, or rather debauching, the wives of their dead brothers. Do we know any Irishmen who did this? Maybe the son of a president.
Wow. Wow.
This is taking a dark.
I love how
Shout out Archbishop.
I love how we're not going to talk about mass immigration into Europe,
Just
and instead
Irish.
we're going to blame the Irish.
Just blame the Irish. No, I feel like the Irish have a point,
Yeah.
right? But the thing
What, are you saying Hunter did nothing wrong?
this is nothing to do with
Extremely
the Bidens.
normal Irish behavior.
Unbelievable.
Just being Irish.
Nick,
You're
you
just being
can't
Irish.
you can't take that. You
Oh.
can't take that.
Careful starting your car, buddy.
It's like
You got the Irish and the Italians wanting to kill you.
No, that-
And I want to put you in Gitmo. You're making enemies.
that's the
pal.
thing is, this is what happens when you tell the truth.
Oh my God. All right. Well, Nikki, thank you for your debut here on the Variety program. I hope everybody's learned more than it sounds like you've learned about this tragic situation in Ireland, but it's something to keep an eye on. And
Yeah.
we needed somebody else to make fun of.
Maybe he has to be Nicky Mick Spaghetti. He can't just be Nicky Spaghetti. We got to respect both sides of his heritage.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
We got to identify him
Yeah.
properly. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Nikki. In other news, there was a lot of that came out about the hostage releases. Unless I'm missing something, did we get any Americans back in these hostage releases?
Not to my knowledge. I remember
We got one.
Okay, one.
One American back, and there's like 50.
Not to mention
We don't
all the
know
ones
exactly.
that were murdered on October 7th.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Just, I want people to remember that. Like, everybody talks about this in the abstract as it's like this conflict that's happening over the Middle East.
That's the thing.
Like, Americans were killed that day.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you know, the
31
stakes
that day.
the stakes are actually much higher for America, and we sort of pretend, because Joe Biden's president, the media covers for him, that it's this abstract thing that he's sort of dealing with.
Yes. Yeah. So as this is all happening, you've got the president. What was he, in Nantucket? Is that where he was?
Was he really?
Yeah. I mean, it's just the whole thing is unbelievable. If you watch it, it's completely tragic. The horrifying story that is Israel and Hamas right now. I understand if you've been tuning some of it out, because it's actually very, very difficult to consume.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you're seeing from the hostages released, and they're kids, right? You're seeing kids come back and see reunited with, and God bless them. I mean, you just love to see.
I mean, for me, what was really messed up is you know, I read this article about a child who was returned, and they're like, well, their parents were murdered.
I mean, it's just the most heartbreaking stuff.
I think we need to go back and we have to attack the Irish again.
Yeah, okay, bring it back.
Because the Irish PM, I don't know if you guys saw this.
This guy again?
Well, the you know, Hamas released a hostage, and the way that they chose to describe it was pretty incredible. Can we put up graphic 4A, please?
Get out of here. Get out of here.
So for our audio-only listeners, this is the tweet. This is a day of enormous joy and relief for Emily Hand and her family. An innocent child who was lost has now been found and returned, and we breathe a massive sigh of relief. Our prayers have been answered.
Lost?
Lost. Oops, we just goofed.
You know, she was just in the forest.
Like we lost her in a Walmart.
I
you
mean,
know?
Oh.
Just got lost.
It's just incredible.
But the moral ambiguity.
Yeah, dude, that it gets to me a lot.
Like,
This
yeah.
kind of shit is just like, and it's intentional. It's intentional because this is a very left-wing thing. They're all under pressure from the grassroots, who is just like full-throated down with Hamas. Like when you said that there's a constituency within the Democratic Party that supports Hamas, you are seeing it to the point that a Democrat member of Congress feels that it's okay to tweet from the river to the sea. Like, that's terrifying.
Terrifying.
Yeah. But it goes back to our previous segment when we were talking about Biden and inflation and everything, and the way that the media and the sort of like liberal establishment tries to like distance the person who's responsible, the causality, right, to the thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here, right? Like, we're not going to talk about Hamas. We're not going to talk about terrorists abducting this girl. We're going to say lost and found. We're going to say lost and found. Let's put up graphic 4B here. There's a nice community note that was put on this tweet.
Nice.
Oh, thank God
yeah.
for Twitter.
Community notes are terrific.
Dude, Elon, you're an absolute king for community notes. The community note says, Emily wasn't lost. She was abducted by terrorists from Hamas.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's sad that we have to applaud this kind of
I know.
thing.
It's like basic stuff, but it's like this. And this is the one thing I do love about the internet for, you know, all of the things that, you know, it's obviously there's a lot of stuff you got to weed through.
Yeah.
But it is a democracy of ideas, and I really truly believe in that. And if you're a conservative, you have to believe in the power of the internet, because everything that we're up against, this establishment in media, hates the fact that it's a disparate network that you can go out and find information.
And that's the thing is Twitter. That's why Twitter is key.
Yes.
Under Elon's governorship is because you're allowed to have that information. It's not a marketplace of ideas like on TikTok,
Right.
where the Chinese are controlling the algorithm, and China doesn't allow Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything in their country.
Yeah.
They're only allowed to export their viewpoint
Propaganda.
that goes to like every kid in this country under the age of 24.
Well, and then think about what happened during COVID, like how much our government tried to impose what it wanted the truth to be.
And suppressed everything else.
And suppressed everything else on these tech platforms. They were using the power of government to tell people at Twitter and Facebook, you can't talk about this doctor. You can't talk about this Harvard-educated person who knows fucking germs.
It literally is the reason we have the First Amendment.
Right.
I mean, it literally is.
Yeah.
It's just, it's astonishing that we've gotten to this point. And it's global, as you can see with the Irish. Now, I'm sorry, Nikki. That's a real problem.
And, it also grinds my gears is the thought that while this child gets to go home after being abducted and held hostage by terrorists, there's a good chance there was some kid at NYU who pulled down the poster of this kid when they're missing.
My God.
Like, think about that happening in America today. How insane is this?
Yeah, it's completely insane. But when I said that Hamas was an actual constituency of the Democratic Party, it was a fact then, it's a fact now.
So true.
Let me give you two headlines from the New York Post. Biden apologized to Muslim American leaders for questioning the death toll of Hamas-linked org. President Biden apologized to some prominent Muslim American leaders for publicly questioning whether the Palestinian death toll being reported by Hamas, Gaza Ministry of Health, was accurate.
We've already seen how inaccurate it's been.
Yeah.
Well, these are the same people that are saying that like everything that they do is justified, and that the rapes, murders, kills, beheadings, abductions, kidnappings, like all of these things are justified.
We're less than a month removed from Hamas firing a rocket into Israel and misfiring and hitting
their own
the parking lot of a hospital. And then we spent 48 hours where every Democrat in this country was calling for a ceasefire, saying Israel blew up a hospital and they killed 500 doctors and patients, which was a fucking lie. And it was all from these people, Gaza Ministry of Health.
Yeah. And that's important, very important to explain. Not only did that happen where it was Hamas who fired the rocket that hit that hospital, then you had members of the Hamas, controlled health ministry have a press conference where they said, this was a rocket from Israel. We have 700 people dead here from the hospital. They put that press conference together, and then the following day, once you see sunlight, it was the parking lot was hit.
Right.
By the rocket from Hamas.
It was all a lie, but now you've got the President of the United States apologizing for questioning the credibility of the organization that did that.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So here's another headline from the Washington Post. White House grapples with internal divisions on Israel-Gaza. Earlier this month, a group of about 20 distressed White House staffers requested a meeting with President Biden's top advisors as Israel's war in Gaza entered its sixth week. All right, so let's just stop right there. We're talking White House staffers.
Yeah.
Their job, literally the paycheck and the oath that they swore to uphold, is to support their administration and the American people. What they're distressed about is an activist position, one of which polling suggests is under 10% of this country. And they are taking the time of top Biden administration's advisors. Now we can make an argument about whether those advisors' time is worth anything at all.
Yeah.
I would argue it's probably not. So 20 of these people showing up.
Yeah,
fine.
but you know what? They should be in the sit room. They shouldn't be dealing with this bullshit.
They shouldn't be dealing with this bullshit. And they've had to deal with it. White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor Anita Dunn and Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner, they wanted to know the administration's strategy for curbing the number of civilian deaths, the message it plans to send on the conflict, and its post-war vision for the region. Its post-war vision. Open a fucking book. Open a fucking book. I don't even know how to make... I just... Guys, it's this is one of the few moments where I'm totally speechless.
Well, we have an incompetent government from the top of the show, from the Secretary of Education. Obviously, the people at the top are completely useless. But what is even more incredible to me is what we saw in 2020 at the New York Times when Tom Cotton wanted to publish that op-ed, right? About how we need to send in the National Guard, and we should have sent in the National fucking Guard.
He was right then.
And I wish every day that Donald Trump would have listened to him more than he listened to Kim Kardashian. Because God bless it, I think he could have undone a lot of the damage that happened that summer if he would have done that. But what happened in the New York Times, where their Slack channel rose up, got the editorial director fired, right? Like that same mentality from these kids has infected the rest of our society, and we're seeing it now here in government, where you've got these kids who their job is, like you said, Holmes, like you have to raise your hand and say, I'm swearing an oath to defend the Constitution, and I'm supposed to advance the cause of this administration, and I work at the pleasure of the president. But now, no, it's all about our fucking feelings, and we're going to have the senior staff of the White House
dealing with their own staff
in a meeting.
In your own staff.
It's insane. I can't. If you're listening to this right now and you're a Democrat, and I know there's a lot of you that hate listen that work in the White House, and you have to deal with these people every day, send us an email.
Yeah.
Like just go to hello@ruthlesspodcast.com. I would love the juicy, dirty details.
We will not out you.
We will not out you.
absolutely not.
We will protect your anonymity. I just want to know how terrible it is to work with some of these left-wing lunatic Zoomers.
And if no one from the White House sends an email there, that's even sadder.
Yeah.
Because in this sense, like when you essentially have 20 staffers in the White House being like, listen, it's time to give the terrorists a break.
Yeah. We got to think about what it looks like after the war for the terrorists.
Oh my God.
Will they be safe?
It's like the tweet. What I'm really worried about is when they nuclear bomb America. What happens? What happens to the terrorists after that?
Yeah.
The Norm Macdonald
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So we have a clip because this is not just here. We've covered this globally, obviously, and it's so distressing. It's just so distressing how warped one's mind can be about this whole conflict. This is from Sky News. If we can run clip 1 of the Sky News account of the deal that was made to free these hostages, I just want to let it sit and let the context speak for itself.
I was speaking to a hostage negotiator this morning. He made the comparison between the 50 hostages that Hamas has promised to release, as opposed to the 150 prisoners that are Palestinians that Israel has said that it will release. And he made the comparison between the numbers and the fact that does Israel not think that Palestinian lives are valued as highly as Israeli lives?
That is an astonishing accusation. If we could release one prisoner for every one hostage, we would obviously do that. We're operating in horrific circumstances. We're not choosing to release these prisoners who have blood on their hands. We are talking about people who have been convicted of stabbing and shooting attacks. Notice the question of proportionality doesn't interest Palestinian supporters when they are able to get more of their prisoners out. But really, it is outrageous to suggest that the fact that we are willing to release prisoners who are convicted of terrorism offenses, more of them than we are getting our own innocent children back, somehow suggests that we don't care about Palestinian lives. Really, that's a disgusting accusation.
I mean,
That is insane.
first of all, hats off to that
Yeah.
response.
Yeah. Incredible, right?
Hats off.
And you can hear the indignation in his voice because it is just fucking patently absurd.
Well, I don't understand how anybody could
Insane.
ask a question. How could you rattle that around in your brain and be like, "Oh, I'm going to say this. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Maybe we should throw this out there."
I mean,
you're releasing 3 convicted terrorists for one innocent child.
Yeah.
and it's devaluing the terrorist.
That's,
Like, how do you even? Where does that come from?
I think that point alone, that when you're talking about a convicted terrorist as opposed to a hostage of terrorists, saying that this is a similar circumstance of being like, okay, well, this is the same thing. Why don't you do that? Like, why wouldn't you trade, an innocent terrorist who's already been convicted? Just framing it in such a way is shocking. And like we talked about 5 minutes ago, that's the problem. Is this like creep that's happening?
There is a problem with misinformation in our world, but it's not the people posting about their $16 McDonald's meals. It's the people in organized media who are lying to the public every single day, and their ratings are suffering because of it. And I mean, I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. The BBC is state-run media in the UK. I don't understand like how people like that come to that conclusion, and then how you hire people who have such like a hardened ideological view to present information.
Yeah,
I got you.
Just to put a finer point on it, and I think this was the case that people were talking about over the weekend on Twitter. Israel would want back like a 5-year-old kid from Gaza who's a hostage, and their crime is being Jewish. And they're willing to release, no, this is a perfect example, Isra Riyad Jabis, who was jailed for 11 years. You know what she did? She tried to ignite a car bomb that disfigured her and in Jerusalem in 2015. And, you know, there were Palestinian supporting accounts who had before and after photos of this woman pretending that
the Israelis did this.
Yeah, she was mutilated in prison.
Good God.
And it's like she had a fucking propane tank and a bomb in her car, and she tried to ram it into a security checkpoint in Jerusalem and ignited her fucking car and burned her face off.
Yeah.
And they're releasing her from prison
For a fiver.
to get a kid back.
Yeah.
And there is no moral equivalency to that. Right?
Man.
But like that person is like, you know, all of these are just prisoners of war. This is just a war.
Disgusting.
And it's not.
It's not. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. You got to keep your head up on this shit because it's inundating us at this point. All right, we got some animal news that I need to hit.
Yes. Let's go.
I think we might even have a clip with this. A horse was loose on a flight to Belgium that forces a cargo jet back to New York. Did you guys see this one? This is from the Associated Press, of all things.
Still not as bad as Southwest.
Do we have a clip on this one, Wolf? All right, so maybe we don't have a clip, but listen to this. So a cargo jet headed to Belgium from New York had to turn around mid-flight after a horse escaped its stall and got loose in the hold. A Boeing 747 operated by Air Atlantica Icelandic just started its flight across the Atlantic Ocean on November 9th when the pilot radioed air traffic control in Boston that said the horse on board had escaped its stall. We don't have a problem flying-wise, he said, but we need to return back to New York. We cannot get the horse back secured. The controller cleared him back, and they landed. And then the 747 pilot had one more request. I do believe we need a veterinarian, I guess you'd call it, for a horse upon its landing. Is that something we can speak to New York about? The controller said he pass it along.
I like that he clarified we need a veterinarian instead of like we need a vet who knows what you got to do.
Yeah,
who's willing to do the right thing and shoot
put
the horse.
Two in the back of the head of this horse. The horse got loose on the flight.
Well, yeah,
First of all, that's even in a 747. You got to imagine that's quite a calamity.
It is. After 9/11, we started putting marshals on airplanes. I think anytime there's going to be a horse on an airplane, Smug should be on the plane.
Yeah. I would do
Smug
the
should
right
be on
thing.
the plane.
I would have the courage to do the right thing.
You would shake a plastic bag at him. You'd get him to calm down.
I mean, well, the thing is, again, this is still not as bad as Southwest because here you've got one wild animal on loose as opposed to 200. You know, so I don't know why they were so worried about it. But the horse still should be shot.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's a fair point because we also have a Southwest issue.
We do.
Do we?
Yeah, this is a man
Always.
who opened a door on a flight and jumped onto the tarmac. Do we have this clip? Let's take a look at this one.
Go y'all. Go y'all.
Oh, man.
Go y'all.
Oh, God.
Look at this. Look at this man.
It's just a sea of humanity.
This is a standard Southwest flight.
Think about it. They were waiting in the C group so they could get a middle seat and a bag of peanuts.
Do they not even put TVs on Southwest chairs? Are you serious?
Wait, are you joking? You barely have seats.
Oh, my
That's
God.
insane.
Look at here. Oh, here we go.
Oh, they
There we're getting out.
Everyone's waiting.
There we go. And they're gonna. Oh, there's the guy.
Oh, God.
There's the guy.
Okay, so
He is right there.
he took the emergency. That's
Oh,
He's stealing a truck.
He's taking people down.
He's stealing a truck right now. What's this?
They got him.
Unbelievable.
If I had to guess, this is probably a guy who travels for work, and whoever his assistant was did the wrong thing, and
Was
he
like, I
finds
have
out. Yeah,
Southwest.
it must have been a new assistant, right?
He thought he
Yeah.
had a Delta comfort class.
Yeah, right.
And then next thing you know,
He's like, "There's no boarding groups. There's no rules."
He's like, everyone's in pajamas.
Yeah.
I'm out of my element. I'm getting off.
Yeah.
he's sitting bitch in the 30th row in
Yeah.
the 757.
And so he did the right thing. He got the hell.
right thing.
I can't think of any more grave emergency than I am sitting on a Southwest flight. Like, think about
so
that.
mean.
No, think about that. There's not even, I didn't know, they don't even have the damn TVs on the chairs. Everyone there is just like, they're just trying to wind them up to cause problems. And these are already dangerous people to begin with.
He's like, I'm off for this thing. Give me your
Like,
truck.
is this a science experiment? This is like a psychological experiment. How do we make people crack? Well, you pack them in. You have no boarding groups, no TVs, and no rules. And let's see what happens. It's like Mad Max in the sky.
All right, we got one other thing that we got to hit. Fellas.
Okay.
And the Smug specifically addressed this and wanted it to go into the program.
Oh God, is it really? It made the show.
Yeah, I'm not sure this like actual website that I'm citing here, jalopnik.com.
Oh, it's a real
Yeah,
one. It's
yeah,
usually a
that's a
car
real one.
website.
Yeah.
It's a car website?
Yeah. Yeah, they have stuff about cars.
Okay. So it's
also related to Gawker, so it's like
Is that where
it's left-wing views on cars. It's like, hey, here's the new Mustang. Also, communism is good. That's Jalopnik.
Well, they also have some views here. There was just a man doing what he was told, evidently, because he was arrested for pleasuring himself at the Come and Go gas station.
Oh my God.
Oh, no.
An Iowa man has been arrested and charged with indecent exposure for an incident in March where witnesses say he pleasured himself to a Come and Go gas station and then vacated the premises. According to Smoking...
I mean, he literally followed directions.
He's like, what do you want from me?
This is a family program.
It's what he said. According to Smoking Gun, a local radio station, Kenneth Lee Kelly. You know, all the masturbators have 3 names.
Well, they have to. Just like serial killers.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
54. He's a little like pushing.
Come on,
that.
dude.
I mean, Little Blue Pill's doing miracles in Iowa, evidently. So 54 of Iowa City was arrested on indecent exposure charge that happened back in March. Witnesses called 911 about an unknown individual at the Come and Go that they say was doing sexual things, quote unquote, and then proceeded to expose his privates.
And see, it's like, other than this guy, it is so telling of how like good the people of Iowa are, and they're like very decent human beings when like he's doing sexual things, right? Like, because this is extremely like improper shit to be doing in public. And I was like, I mean, it's one of the best places, number
Salt
one,
of the earth
that you
beach.
can go in this country, and like he's just doing sexual things.
He's doing sexual things. Now, he admitted that his clothing matched the man in the video, but denied being the perpetrator.
Incredible.
Now, witnesses positively identified him in the lineup, and police obtained a warrant to search Mr. Kelly's house to find matching clothing. Once charged with misdemeanor indecent exposure, Mr. Kelly clarified that he was scratching his genitals and not actually exposing himself. He faces up to a year in jail if convicted. His previous convictions for felony theft, narcotics possession, driving without a license, and marijuana. Again, instructions?
Okay, also, so
Was he
he's
just
only
following?
getting a misdemeanor, and also, with a misdemeanor, they got a search warrant for his house.
Yeah, I don't know how they got.
I think it's open and shut. He got like ID'd by witnesses. All right, charge him, send him to jail.
Our society is falling apart.
Guy's got 4
I don't know.
convictions.
I don't know what says that we are a healthy society. Quite like the last 3 stories we talked about. You can't hook a horse up into the cargo plane. A guy just runs out of the emergency exit on the tarmac of a Southwest flight, and then you got this guy. Things are wrong. Things are not.
He has a name, Smashbrook. His name is Kenneth Lee Kelly.
That's right. I mean,
That is
Lee
such
Kelly.
a warning sign.
Kenneth
The
Lee
3
Kelly.
name thing, it's like right next to yellow.
I keep going back to the fact that it was Iowa. It's like, hey, hon, where are you going?
where are you going?
Oh, hey, just heading down to the Come and Go. I'll be right back. Just gonna take care of some things, pick a few things up for the morning. Ah!
And he's like, I was simply following instructions.
Is it a Come and Go or not? That's all I'm gonna say. Is it my fault that they named it?
We're a family program.
It's a Come and Go. I came and I went. Oh, Kenneth Lee. I love it. With that, we should introduce our interview, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love we saved our best stuff right before we interview a serious person. This guy is a serious person. You're actually going to love his story, and his interview is probably the first time you've heard it in its entirety. But it's Derrick Anderson. He's a congressional candidate that is in the middle of a must-have congressional race in Virginia. His story is incredible. He's a Green Beret. You got to listen. I want to welcome to the program a really interesting guy. Great story to tell. He's been on our radar for a while. He's running for Congress in what it's going to be a really competitive race. And it's one of those districts that can go either way, might be a majority maker. But this guy's up to the task. Derrick Anderson, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, gents. Appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, I mean, listen to this. I've got calls coming in. I've already unprofessional start that I've got going on. But look, tell us a little bit about your story, because not everybody knows it. It has been sort of international news in who you are and how you came about being interested in politics and your service and everything else. But why don't we get it directly from you?
Yeah, we were joking right beforehand. You get out on the campaign trail and you get 30 seconds. It's like, tell me why you're running for Congress. And you're like, well, there's a lot of things. But, one of the things that really kind of hit me was the withdrawal in Afghanistan. And specifically for me, if you trace my story back, not only just the fact that, I'm from Spotsylvania County, that's my home district. My mom owned, I always try to be PC about, she owned restaurants that just so happen to have a bar next to it.
Yeah.
And so, that's where I worked growing up.
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome being on the campaign trail and you're walking around, they're like, I think your mom might have kicked me out of the bar one or two times. I'm like, yeah, I probably remember that, my man.
It checks.
Yeah, it checks out. But, I ended up going, I was the first college graduate in my family. I went to Virginia Tech. Thank God my mom is a wonderful woman and pushed me in that direction because, my senior year in high school was 9/11.
Yeah.
So, initially my first reaction was, nope, I'm going into the military. I'm going to serve. And my mom was like, no, you're not. You're going to Virginia Tech. Well, there was a few options, but Virginia Tech ended up being it because they had the Corps cadets there.
Yeah.
I thought that was actually a really good thing for me growing up. But, I ended up going into the infantry afterwards, went with 3rd ID, did 15 months in Iraq as part of the surge, which was...
Yeah, that's wild.
15 months is a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really a really long time. I thought about getting out after that, and I ended up...
I imagine just pure fatigue.
15 months was just like brutal. And, we lost... I was first platoon leader. My roommate was second platoon leader. They lost an entire squad in an IED attack. They lost quite a few folks. And so I came back. I kind of reset. I went to the Old Guard over at Arlington National Cemetery, which was really awesome. Like it was one of those places I always tell people, it's not a lot of people are like, it must have been when you were a Green Beret, it was your best time in the service. It was. That was the most cool stuff I did. It was the most fun. But when I talked about like what you have like a sense of pride.
Yeah.
It's like doing funerals in Arlington National Cemetery, being able to lay someone's loved one down to rest for the final time and doing it perfect was like something that meant something to me.
Yeah,
So,
that's interesting.
I was in this crossroads in life. Was thinking about going to law school. And then I got the letter in the mail literally the week I was supposed to take the LSAT. And it said, you want to go to selection for the Green Berets? And I was like, yeah, why not? So I did that instead of taking the LSAT.
The test will be around anytime.
Yeah, it'll be around. So I did that, ended up passing, going through the 2-ish years of the Q course, and then showed up the 5th Special Forces Group, and I deployed with them 5 times. So
Jeez.
I was fortunate. I did some really cool missions. Went to Bahrain, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, and Afghanistan. And then this kind of rolls into the story. My team and I were on my Green Beret team and I were on our last mission in Afghanistan. We were split up in 3 different spots in this valley in an area called Arghandab. And so one of our positions started getting shot at from about 2 or 3 locations. And as that happened, we started, a B-1 bomber had come on station. We were assuming that it was going to be an AC-130, which those things are amazing. You ever seen the videos of them? They essentially shoot like mortars from the sky.
Right.
It's pretty wild. So bottom line is we end up calling in close air support. We're wearing IR strobes on the top of our helmets. And that's how we're identifying ourselves. Can you see IR strobe here? Yes. Okay, go this distance direction. That's where bad guys are. Well, they ended up dropping 2 500-pound bombs on what they thought was bad guys, and it was on our team in Afghanistan, killing 5 other guys in 1 Afghan. So, fast forward a little bit, we redeploy fairly quickly from Afghanistan. We go to the funerals of our guys. We're still trying to figure out what the heck actually happened.
Yeah.
We had been interviewed by some folks. Generally speaking, the chain of command was like, hey, there was an issue with the aircraft. Don't worry about it. And we said, okay, we'll continue marching on. And then that was in 2014, 9 June 2014 was when my guys were killed. And then fast forward a couple of months, and I get, the letter that nobody wants, and I got called to the man's office, and it said, we're recommending relief of command for you. And I was sitting back like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
And so eventually they put an Air Force general in charge of an Air Force plane dropping on Army guys on the ground. Investigation was really long, hundreds of pages long. I ended up dissecting it, and I was like, whoa, there's an issue here. The airplane that said it could see the strobes on our helmets can't.
Couldn't.
It was in the manuals that it could. The Air Force thought it could. The pilots thought it could. Everyone thought it could, but it couldn't.
Wow.
And so instead of rectifying and going after that problem, they essentially said, you guys on the ground should have known better. The guys on the ground,
you should have known the
should have known
aircraft
better.
capabilities.
Known it better than the Air Force and the Air Force pilots. So
I remember this. There was a whole 60 minutes they did on this.
So yeah, so fast forward, I ended up going after, I wrote a rebuttal. It's like 30 plus pages, and I pretty much went down the line of every single inaccuracy, deficiency in this report, and I sent it to my chain of command. There was some, consternation amongst the chain of command of what was going on. And I pretty much put I poked the DOD in the eye. I said, this is wrong.
Yeah.
You guys, there's a problem, inherent issue with this aircraft. You're not willing to address it. Instead, you want to go and push it down onto the guys.
Yeah.
As we've seen over the years, that's not something new that we've seen, but it was something new to me. And so Christmas Eve 2014, I distinctly remember it. I was visiting my mom in Spotsylvania. I was on block leave. And I got the phone call that said, hey, no administrative or disciplinary action is going to happen to you. And I was like,
Bet that was a relief.
it was. But then I came back after block leave in January and said, so what are you going to do to fix it?
Yeah.
They were not happy with that, needless to say. So
this guy won't go away.
So as you can imagine, I go back, I ended up deploying to Lebanon and Israel as after that. There was all these talks. Well, this was on them. I was like, you put me as the second in command of the company after that, and redeployed me 2 times. If I was such a terrible commander, what the hell? Like, what is going on here?
Your decision making is even worse than I thought.
I was like, this is insane. So I ended up, I had a, and thank God for this gentleman, but he's a former Green Beret, 2-star general, and an attorney here in D.C. He represented me pro bono the whole time.
Wow.
Him and a team of attorneys helped me out, and he pretty much looked at me and he said, hey, man, what are you going to do next? Because, you punched the DOD in the face and told them they were wrong.
Yeah.
And during that period when all that was going down, that my lawyer actually had me come up to D.C. And I met with members of Congress on both the House and the Senate side. Some conversations went well.
Yeah.
Some conversations didn't. And that was kind of my first impression. That was my first time. Like, I never sat in a room with a member of Congress.
I was going to say, you probably weren't inherently very political.
No. I mean, admittedly, like, I walked in there, I had to go dig a suit out, that I usually take overseas to go into, at embassies, usually when I have one. And I got into some heated debates with some members and their staff. And a matter of fact, there's one individual, I won't name him, but
we're cool if you do that.
Yeah. There was one specifically, Virginia, that literally his staffer was like, well, we got a lot of things going on right now. We have an election coming up. We have a lot of things. This is just not in our prerogative. And I was like, I'm your constituent, man.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'm your guy. I'm one of your people. And he pretty much said, like, sorry. And he actually, I was very heated, and I ended up being like, he said, this meeting's over. So I walked out, and he chased me down the hallway and said, thank you for your service, whatever, and walked away. And then there was a woman, and I'll name her because she's awesome, Senator Kelly Ayotte. She came and helped me out. Like, she was amazing, amazing person, had my side, was behind me the whole time. So anyways, that was my first taste. That was my first taste of politics. I never really heard anything about it. And then, to your point earlier, I ended up going to law school, and I'm a second year, dreary-eyed, drinking coffee, trying to stay awake in class type thing, trying to get through law school. And 60 Minutes called me and said, hey, do you want to go on 60 Minutes and tell your side of the story? I said, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
I really do, because I want something to happen. And so went on 60 Minutes, did that, and then one of my Green Beret buddies was, again, working up on the Hill. He said, hey, you got everyone's attention now. One of the guys lied on national TV, the Air Force general. So they're like, you got everyone's attention, so if you want, write something up.
Yeah.
So I started writing white papers to the House Armed Services Committee, and eventually we started getting language into the NDAA that was saying, hey, what do you guys do in DOD to fix this problem?
That's
What's
amazing.
next? And so it's hard to tell that story, like I was saying, in 30 seconds
Yeah.
when you're talking to someone. But, when I saw what happened in Afghanistan, that kind of was the tipping point for me.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not good. How the situation was handled was not good. I'd gone to a wedding shortly after that, another one of my Green Beret buddies. And he had a few buddies that were actually on the ground in Afghanistan, like throwing equipment back on the airplanes as they were trying to get out of there. So,
Man.
it was pretty disastrous. And so, I did some internal soul searching. I said, I want to do something. Like, I want to do something to continue serving.
Yeah.
And so, I decided to run in 22.
It's wild.
And that's how it happened.
Yeah.
It literally happened. I said, I'm going to think about this for a month, and then I jumped in and did it.
Well, I think the coolest part about all of that, and I'm glad you told the full story because it's an important context to why you're here in the first place. The coolest part about it is you're doing it not because you're particularly maybe partisan motivated personally, but you want to change, which is really why anybody should run for office, right? You want to change, sought it, were successful in a personal capacity, and then understood that you could do that in a larger way of representing people you grew up with.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the coolest parts about this, too, is this is one of my funniest campaign stories of 22 is I'm knocking on doors in Spotsylvania, actually in the neighborhood directly next to my high school. And one of my ex-girlfriends, granted, it was a wild story. She's a wonderful woman. Her family's wonderful. I met her when I was actually stationed at Fort Campbell, ran into her and was like, we're both from Spotsylvania County. This is amazing. Ended up dating her for a while, and we still remain friends. And I got a text message from my friend, my ex-girlfriend, and she said, did you just knock on my parents' front door?
It's like, what are you doing here,
and I was
man?
like, I got my stuff. I'm out there just knocking on doors. Just me. I had a campaign manager. He was somewhere else doing it. And I was like, knocking on doors. And all of a sudden I go, I might have. I'm in your parents' neighborhood. I don't know if they still live here or not. She goes, my dad just got out of the shower. He's coming to find you. And I was like, oh God. Oh God.
Let's make sure he puts some clothes on.
And he's a great, great guy. And he rolls up in his pickup truck. And he's like, hello, Mr. Anderson. And I was like, hey, Mr. So-and-so. And he's like, you need a water? And I was like, am I going to make it out of that truck if I get in with you? And he goes, yeah, you'll make it out of here. Come on, man. So it was awesome. We sat there and it's awesome to run into people like that. Not many people can have that opportunity to genuinely be able to say, like, I represent the people that raised me. Like, I represent my mom. I represent my grandparents, my cousins, my uncles. Like, it's going to be like, it's truly an honor to be able to do it. So, it's a unique position to be in.
I mean, it's cool. And look, in 22, you took on one of the toughest races in the country.
Yeah.
And had never done it before, which in and of itself says something about your willingness to put yourself out there. This time around, it's open seat, right?
Yeah.
And this was the most expensive House race in the country last cycle, right? He's a Virginia 7.
Yeah, that sounds right up.
And Abigail Spanberger, who's in the seat now currently, is going to be running for governor.
Yep.
Right? So open seat.
An open seat and a guy with name ID all of a sudden, huh?
Yeah.
I feel like you probably learned a few things first time around.
Learned a few things. I forget who it was I was talking to the other day, and they said, Derrick, what did you learn? Like, what would you have changed from last time? And to be quite honest, I'm pretty forefront. No one knew who I was when it came to politics. Like, I'd never been involved. I'd been involved in Yunkin stuff, some local stuff here and there, but like I'd never been a candidate. I'd never run for anything before. All of my primary opponents, they were all sitting members or someone who had, sitting state senators, board of supervisors.
Yeah, right. They built up name.
Yeah, they had it, and so I had to come in, and I always, I tell folks, I was like, I had to learn while I was on the go. All of my primary competitors, they knew what they were doing. They've done this before. They knew what worked, what didn't. And pretty much what I ended up seeing very quickly is like the power of hard work. Surprise, actually works.
Yeah.
We made it a point that every single day that, I would be fundraising during the day, and then in the afternoon I would go to a neighborhood close to wherever the local GOP is or a restaurant or what have you, go knock on 20 or 30 doors, then go to the GOP meeting, try to swing by another restaurant. There's a Waffle House down in Spotsylvania that knows me very well because me and my campaign manager would come back at midnight and be like, we haven't eaten dinner. And so we were just hanging out at the Waffle House.
Isn't that's the wildest thing about a congressional campaign is your day will be so packed with events and things that you'll just forget to eat sometimes.
All the time.
It's just
Totally.
late hours.
All the time.
You know?
And you'll realize, you'll be like, I don't feel good. Why don't I feel? Oh, I haven't eaten.
Yeah.
in like 72 hours.
Holmes used to just work on Diet Mountain Dew. he could drink like a 2-liter of the thing during the day, not eat anything.
Mine was the Wawa Club sandwich and Waffle House.
There
Those
you
are my
go.
two things that I'd be able to get fairly quickly and take it home and just power through it and go straight to sleep. Like those were my two things. So
At least you have the preparation for it. Having
Yeah.
your military service, it's like, if things are not ideal in the old body, you got to keep going.
yeah. I mean, it was funny though because I'd see some of my buddies like, man, you're looking kind of skinny. Like, and I was like, yeah, well, I'm knocking on doors. It got to the point where my campaign manager, because I would be out there, I'd go into the car, grab a bottle of water, and jump back out there, and he's like, your face is bright red.
You're scaring them.
Did you put any sunblock on, man? And I'm like, nope, I didn't. I had no sunblock on, and my face was toasted. And so I'd always walk around, my campaign manager and my team would be like, where's your sunblock? Where's your sunblock? And they still to this day, they'll text me if I'm going to go knock on door. Where's your sunblock at? Make sure you got your sunblock. So I toasted myself during the
So
22.
good.
It was
You
wild.
also got to know that a guy's pretty squared away when he's comfortable knocking on ex-girlfriends' doors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure I could get away with that. I mean, this guy's going door to door, every door in the district, it sounds like.
We knocked a lot. But I mean, that's what we figured out, like just going, surprise, going out and just being around people. We used to go to restaurants and just, hey, do you mind if I walk around and say hi to people?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They'd have, a philanthropic event. Do you mind if I just want to come hang out if that's all right? And so I think that was really the kind of the power of our campaign in 22 is, for somebody who did not, have any name recognition or didn't have any name ID as far as it came politically, I think that really helped us out on the ground, which is beating feet and getting out there and meeting people. That's it. I mean, that's what it came down to. And I think, a lot of folks in the district also saw it too, is like we were willing to work. Like I think there's a lot of people go up to DC and go to, become a member in one way or another. And it's like a popularity. They kick their feet up after they get up there and they say, well, I made it. Like, that's not how our mentality is. Like, my team has been 100%. Like, we're going to work our tails off. We're going to prove to people that we're willing to work when we get up there.
Yeah, nobody's going to want it more.
No.
I want to ask you about current events because you mentioned your time in Israel. Mm-hmm. I know you had some experience with the IDF.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on what's happening there.
Yeah, so, a lot of folks, so I went there in, I think it was 2016, roughly around that time frame. I went there. Pretty much, it was kind of cool. We did a thing where we trained with the Israeli Defense Forces, some of their special operations guys and gals, and then we brought some of them over here, and we did some training, some just concurrent training, essentially. The organization that we were working with was essentially like their version of EOD, like the explosives people, which also incorporates the tunnel people. Like they have an actual unit for the tunnels.
I imagine.
Yeah,
it's
and
a huge deal.
So we spent a lot of time. We got to go to a few of their bases. And I actually, when I was in law school, I went there on another trip with them as well, and I got to see a whole bunch of really cool stuff just in my civilian capacity, not in my military. But one of the things that was that always just caught me like by guard, like off guard and by surprise was. I remember going in and talking with the IDF commander. I think he was a captain at the time. And him and I were talking. And at the time, Syria was kicking off. ISIS was, peeking their heads over in the borders of Israel and Lebanon and some of these other countries. And so it was one of those things a lot of times where you're talking to the IDF and you're like, well, why don't you do this? And you're trying to give them advice or at least, hey, this is how we would look at things. And I remember distinctly the IDF commander being like, it's, sometimes you Americans just don't understand it. And I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? And he's like, you have to understand right now, because one of the things we asked him about was Hezbollah. So this is great. Hezbollah's not pointing their weapons at you. They're too busy worried about ISIS. They don't like ISIS. That's a good thing for everyone, right? And he said, that's the 50-meter target, right? You guys don't see it. Then in a few years from now, something's going to pop off. And Hezbollah has now been funded, and now they're trained because they were fighting ISIS. And where do you think those weapons are going to turn back to? Us. He goes, what about, all of these other organizations that are out there? Right now, they're all focused on ISIS. You guys forget that in a couple years from now, those crosshairs will go right back on us. And it was really something, they all, you hear it in the news quite often. Like, what would it be like if Mexico or Canada were just lobbing rockets at us every
All the
other day,
time.
right? Like,
Yeah.
or they were just like indiscriminately shooting across, which, sometimes they do. But imagine if that was going on a daily basis. Like when I was there with my Georgetown, when I was in law school, some of my law school friends thought it was fireworks going over our heads when we were in the southern part of Israel, and I was like, nope.
Hey, fellas, that ain't
Nope. Those are missiles.
it. Those are live deals.
And so that was one of the things that
It's like that existential mentality,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's always
there.
Yeah.
And like a lot of folks, the big thing I got to see, the other thing that really kind of took me by surprise was the tunnel systems, right? So one of the things they were able to do is they took a map out, and we were in the southern part of Israel looking down into Gaza. So like you could physically look into Gaza, and it's kind of a surreal look because like you can see the kibbutzes, and you can see like where people are eating hummus right down the street. I mean, we went to a restaurant and ate hummus, like a few, right near Gaza. And you're looking down into it, and it's just a fence that goes around it, and it's got kind of a no man's land on each side, where it's kind of got a road. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I got to see Gaza. And they're like, well, let's pull out a map. So they pulled out a map. They started pointing out different buildings. And there was like one building that had like kind of haphazardly UN painted on the side of it and had a few other things. And I was like, well, what's the significance of that? Like, I don't understand it. And they were like, oh, that's where the tunnels are. That's where they start their tunnels at. And at the time, I don't know if they had built the concrete underneath the fence yet or not, but they showed us a whole bunch of videos of some of the tunnels that had gone into Israel. So like, they were actually tunnels going into Israel. And I was like, well, what's the issue? And he's like, well, you always hear about the stabbings in Israel. Oftentimes you hear either rockets coming over the border or stabbings. What happens is these guys, this Hamas people, are coming through the tunnels, finding a knife somewhere and just indiscriminately stabbing people in some of these populated areas.
That's just incredible.
It was insane. And so
wild.
You're watching this, and then they show you mock-up tunnels, and these things are... They're very built up. Essentially they dig 24/7, and then they drop a concrete barrier in there that's like a U shape, slide it in, keep digging. And so you're like, this is like a legitimate operation here. And so
shows their commitment too.
Shows their commitment, shows that their ability to do it and to go out and do that. So I mean, I think that was the biggest thing since day one, since October 7th. That's always been the thing that kind of sits in the back of my mind is the Israelis have had really good tactics and techniques to take care of these tunnels in the past. They've got liquid foam that can explode. They got liquid foam that just hardens. But when you take that added element of the hostages in, then
now what?
You can't put explosives into a tunnel that potentially has hostages, right? You can't stop the avenue of approach for you to go in there and actually rescue the hostages if it's blocked off.
Yeah.
And so that's been really kind of the thing that, I think that the Israelis are having to toil with. It's not an easy task. And as we all know, Hamas can do whatever they want, right? They have done whatever they want.
Yeah, there's no rules with them.
No rules.
Yeah.
The second the IDF screw up, the second that Israel screws up, they get their thumb gets directly on them. So they're just in the situation that is just not easy from an international perspective or from a
totally.
It's not easy for them.
No, it seems like it's just the worst set of circumstances of all time. And what I find so baffling, and I don't know if you have a perspective on this or not, but I find it so baffling that there are constituencies in this country that honestly think Hamas has got a point of view here.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I mean, it's doesn't it just blow your mind?
Yeah, I mean, especially too when you see where it's happening at. Like it's happening at our schools and institutions of higher level learning.
Yeah,
like, that's what's scary to me. Is like a lot of these people are going to get a Harvard degree or a Yale degree or a degree from somewhere and potentially go on to do big things.
Yeah,
and we're starting to see that. There's something inherently wrong there, where we are starting to now see the atrocities that we've been seeing it for the last over almost 2 months now, right? And the fact that people can look those journalists or those people dead in the eye and say, well, that's fake, it never happened, and they bring the media in. You saw Israel brought in the media and said, hey, look, we'll show you firsthand what's going on here.
Yeah,
and I compare how Hamas uses their political their like public affairs, right? Their PAO, their public affairs, how they put stuff. Hamas literally went in, attacked, killed, burned, did all of the most heinous things in the world to the Israelis, and then drug 200 plus of them over into Gaza and have been keeping them for 2 months now, keeping them hostage. We're starting to now hear some of the stories that are coming out. on the other side of the token, you have Israel that's showing videos. I remember when they first started doing some of their raids, they had very, very precise, they had their weapons up. They were body camming, body footage of everything that was going on, showing that they were being discriminate, meaning not shooting into buildings just willy-nilly. They were showing that, the targets that they were targeting were actual Hamas, holding areas, weapons depots, what have you. And then they would actually do warnings. Please leave. We are about to go and bomb this or do something here.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two. Like, if you look at that, and then you see these people that are on the streets doing what they're doing, it's like, I don't get it. It does not compute with me. Like, it's just like really, really terrible. And I think there is something to be said though. Like, there's people out there that are just like peace-loving people, right? They don't want Palestinians to get killed. They don't want Israelis to get killed. I think everyone agrees with that generally. I mean, I do. I don't want to see innocent people get killed. But at the end of the day, when you see Hamas grabbing innocent civilians and hiding behind them, you're stuck in a rock and a hard place there.
Yeah, so, I mean, good people have an obligation to stand up at some point, or else it continues.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate your perspective on that. And by the way, you brought us a bottle of bourbon, which
I had to.
Is there a story behind this?
One of my Green Beret buddies gave it to me just recently, and I said, you know what, these guys might like this one. I
mean, this looks like a beautiful bottle.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
Hotel Tango.
There was another one. I'll have to try to get one for you. One of my buddies who's a Green Beret, he has a distillery down outside of Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
He's Andy, if you're out there, buddy, we'll try to get these guys a bottle.
I love that.
These guys are awesome.
We're familiar with the Fort Campbell area, that's for sure. Spent a lot of time in and around that spot. That's great bunch of people.
Great Americans down there.
Totally. Absolutely. All right, so I got 3 questions for you before we get you out of here. If you can plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
Oh, it would definitely have to be a New York strip.
There you
medium
go.
rare.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm a big steak guy. Got to.
Any sides with that, or we're just going straight meat?
Oh no, I'm gonna go. If I'm gonna get a side, I'm gonna do like a lobster tail with it.
Yeah,
Outback Steakhouse style. Like lobster tail for $6 on next to. That's where I'm going.
I mean, it's your last meal.
That's it.
You can do whatever you want.
I'm putting a lobster tail either on top of it or right next to it for sure.
Maybe a little bourbon.
Oh yeah, I mean that's going to be the drink of choice for
sure.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So this question's going to hit a little differently with you. Typically, we ask people who've been in politics for a while if you can look back on your life with the benefit of blue sky. You have this time period that you've dedicated to doing what you're doing, but you can fill it with anything you want with the benefit of retrospect. For you, that obviously goes back much further, and it's just sort of a blue sky question. You got 10, 15 years in the middle of your life knowing what you know now. What would you do with it? If you had to do something different.
If I had to do something different outside of politics, I'd want to open a distillery.
Yeah, nice.
I when I say I'm a bourbon guy, I'm a bourbon
You're
guy.
a real bourbon guy.
I'm a real bourbon guy. Like I would open a distillery. I don't think it's gonna be able to match some of the stuff out there because there's just some of the stuff out there just so good nowadays. Like,
and they spend so much time tinkering, and it's a science experiment.
And if I had the time, I would try to do that, right? Like I would try to tinker with it to make it to the level of some of these bourbons.
Right?
But like just to be able to have like a bourbon that has like Anderson on there, or like a Green Beret or like a Horse Soldier or something awesome, I would want to do a distillery. I think they would just be fun. It'd be a good challenge too, because it's hard. It's not easy work out there. I think, I would own a distillery.
And there's a reward at the end. I mean, the bottle is just, it is what it is.
Absolutely.
And if it's good or it's bad, it still gets you drunk.
Right.
In the end, it's
not a complete loss.
Of course.
All right, so third and final. So our view is that almost all successful people are motivated by one of two things: the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. And it's not that anybody enjoys losing or anybody doesn't like winning. It's what motivates you to keep going. Mm-hmm. And we've always used Michael Jordan as the agony of defeat prototypical person that, all the championships he won, he celebrated for like 3.5 minutes. But you insult him on the court and he carries it around like a backpack for the rest of his life. So he's like an agony of defeat guy. A lot of examples of super successful thrill of victory people that are self-motivated. They do the stuff because they think they can do it. Mm-hmm. On those two poles, where do you think you find yourself, Derrick?
Whether or not I, enjoy the agony defeat versus the victory.
Well, it's just like basically what motivates you to keep going.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's an esoteric question, granted, but it's a good character.
So, because I've felt defeat before,
let's
be honest, one of the things that really kind of sat with me the night of 2022 when I lost my primary, my mom was in dead tears. She was in dead tears. My family was there. My friends were there. My high school friends.
Yeah.
College buddies. Everyone had driven in to Spotsylvania, and it was one of those things where my mom was just in tears, and I was like, "Relax, Mom."
Yeah.
Like, this is. I had to tell the first thing I told everyone was like, "This is not the worst day in my life.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just one step. It's a hurdle. It's something that happened."
Yeah.
So the agony defeat really motivated me. I wanted to continue to do stuff, and admittedly, when I first thought about doing this again, there was a lot of soul searching. I talked to my mom. My mom's like, "You sure you really want to go back through this again?" And I was like, "I guess misery loves company, Mom. Let's do it." So no, I think that was one of the things, being able to look across and seeing all the people that were there that supported me, and that continue to support me. It's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like, that night was a night, not my favorite night in the world.
Yeah.
But it's really cool now that, while I'm running, when I'm running around the district, and everyone goes, "Oh man, that sucked, but we're really happy that you're back in it." That part is like, okay, well, I must have done something right here. Like, we're doing something right, and people believe in us.
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of what motivates me to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So, Derrick, for those of us who want to support your campaign, help out, where do they go?
Yeah, folks can go to DerrickAnderson.com. It's DERRICK, Anderson.com. It's got information on me. Obviously, we have places for people to sign up to help door knock, put signs out. Obviously, if people want to throw a little money in there, we're never going to complain about that. But
Again, the most expensive house district in the country in 2022.
Democrats want it bad.
They do. So, but I think we're in a good spot, and we're going to keep chugging along and take the seat back.
I imagine you're getting a lot of veteran support.
Big time. Yeah. Quantico's right there in the middle of our district. So, I mean, the funniest ones are always when I knock on some Marine's door and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Derrick Anderson. I'm former Green Beret." And he goes, "Burp." Like, "We're devil dogs." I'm like, "All right. Like, give me a break, guys. Give me a break." So,
Can you meet me halfway on this?
Man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for running. It's really important, and you got a great voice to help advocate for people you grew up with, and I really hope you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Jens. Appreciate it. Seriously.
Thanks, Derrick.
It's a very, very competitive district, open seat. This is where Dave Bratt won. Eric Cantor won this for just cycle after cycle. I think that we can get this seat back, and he seems like a good start.
It's a majority maker. It really is. I mean, like I said,
That's it.
Like I said in the interview, this is the most expensive House race in the country in 2022. I mean, like it's one that we have to win if we want to build a sustainable majority for Republicans in the House. We just got to do it.
No question about
And
it.
we got a great candidate. I mean, incredibly impressive.
And what I love about him, dude, is like he seems like the sort of guy who very reluctantly got into politics.
Totally.
I mean, he's a Green Beret.
That's a good sign.
He has this like terrible situation with his own troops while he's over there serving, and what he got to see was like the failures of the system up close and personal. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "I think I can improve this." Yeah. And it's like, I mean, what do you want? Like, what do you want more in a public servant than somebody who didn't want to do this, was forced to do this, saw the system as it is, and was like, "I think I can do better."
100%. 100%. Just a rock solid dude. I'm glad he came on. We're going to be following him throughout. You should go to his website if you want to support him, and we will continue to follow that campaign all the way through.
Yeah.
With that, fellas, I think we did it. A big Tuesday episode.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much to Derrick Anderson. Best of luck on that campaign. And thank you so much to the Minions. If you have not yet, subscribe on YouTube. Enjoy the show with video. So until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.